To see you all, we're in a series on the practices of Jesus. What are the things that he did? Because we're not just followers of Jesus in the sense that we are aware of what he taught, but we want to engage in the practices that he did. And this is part of how transformation takes place. It's one thing to watch a video on how to swim. It's another thing to get in the water and do what it is that you've learned. And these are practices that help us get into the water of faith. And what we see is that we actually make progress and we experience transformation. And I have to tell you, this morning is the message everyone is always afraid that I'm going to talk about. And there are some people who think this is the only thing the church talks about. And we're going to talk about generosity and giving today. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, great. The one Sunday I brought my wallet with me. Should have left it at home. And it's not like that at all. In fact, if anything in my talk today feels at all manipulative to you, don't give anything today. Just hold it. Because my heart is not trying to get more. But Jesus was very generous. And we're going to learn a little bit about how we can think about generosity and how it helps our transformation experience. So we're going to look at 2 Corinthians chapter 8, beginning in verse 7. It says, since you excel in many ways, in your faith, your gifted speakers, your knowledge, your enthusiasm, your love from us, I want you to excel also in this gracious act of giving. I'm not commanding you to do this, but I am testing how genuine your love is by comparing it with the eagerness of the other churches. You know the generous grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. Though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor, so that by his poverty he could make you rich. Here's my advice. It would be good for you to finish what you started a year ago. Last year, you were the first who wanted to give, and you were the first who began doing it. Now you should finish what you've started. Let the eagerness you showed in the beginning be matched now by your giving. Give in proportion to what you have. Give in proportion to what you have. Whatever you give is acceptable if you give it eagerly. Whatever you give is acceptable if you give it eagerly. And give according to what you have, not according to what you don't have. This is a master class in generosity that Paul gives us. And so I'd like to break it down into some simple concepts. And the first is this: generosity is a generous act, not a holy performance. Generosity is a generous act, not a holy performance. Did you hear it? Since you excel in so many ways, I want you to excel also in the gracious gift, the gracious act of giving. Excel in giving. Now, there's probably things that you excel in. Paul identifies some things for the Corinthian church. He tells them they excel in spiritual gifts. Like if you are all about spiritual gifts, you'd love the Corinthian church. They were all about that too. And public speakers, they had brilliant orators, and they had knowledge, they had enthusiasm. It was a passionate place to hang around, and a lot of us would have liked that a lot. But he says, I want you to add something to that. I want you to be good at giving. I want you to excel at that just like you excel at other things, and not to impress people, because that's a thing that can happen, and not just to check a box of a spiritual obligation, because that's a thing that can happen, but because giving is what grace looks like. Giving is what grace looks like. We don't have to give because we're supposed to. We give because grace wrecked us. And it's how we respond to the grace that has come into our lives. When you've tasted the generous love of God, it makes you generous too. We don't give out of obligation, we give out of overflow. Out of overflow. It's not a performance, it's a practice. It's a daily decision to unclench our fists. That's what generosity is. The second thing that I think Paul teaches us here is that generosity tests what we actually love, not what we pretend to love. What we actually love, not what we pretend to love. That's what he says. I'm not commanding you. I'm testing how genuine your love is. I love this because he's not shaming them at all. He's not wielding some kind of a guilt trip bat to club them on the head. He's just asking, is your love the kind of love that actually does something? Because that's what love does. Or is it the kind that just posts something? See, in our world, we think that if we have vocalized the things that we feel passionate about in social media, that somehow we've accomplished something. Social media posts don't accomplish anything. I'm always confused when I see people who are prominent in our culture and multimillionaires and have access to resources that most of us could never even dream of, much less accumulate. And they will get very passionate about something, but they don't contribute any of their resources. They don't take any of their time. They just rant on social media. And our culture has come to believe that's what counts. That's what counts. Guilt can make us Venmo somebody $5, but it will not make you reorder your heart or your budget. So Paul doesn't use guilt. It's not how he goes. Guilt-based giving is always about us. When we're giving out of guilt, it's always about us. I don't want to feel bad. Who's that about? I don't want to disappoint someone. Who's that about? Grace-based giving gives generously. And it says, I love this person or I love this cause more than I love the things that I have or hold on to. That's how it talks about it. And this is not should language. It's not, you should do this. It's a different kind of language. It's want language. I want to help build a world that is different than the one that I'm seeing right now. That's what it is. Third thing that the Apostle Paul talks about here, generosity doesn't give to get. Thank God. Generosity doesn't give to get. Though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor. If you've ever been told the idea that if you give in church, that it's a spiritual investment strategy. If you give $10, God will give you $100. If you give $100, God will give you $1,000. If you give $1,000, God will give you a mansion to live in and a car to drive that is your dream car. And if you've ever heard that, I'm sorry. That's not how it works. We don't give to get. We give because we have already received something. We have something to give. It's out of an overflow. God has been very generous with me. Why would I not want to be generous with someone or something else? That's how the kingdom works. We don't give to get. Grace, mercy, you already have it. It's been freely given to you. We have been seen when we felt invisible, and we have been supported when we felt we couldn't stand on our own. God has already given us amazing things. When you think about it, I know some people think that they are, well, for lack of a better term, their own saviors. Like they were really down and out, and then they made something happen. They pulled themselves up. They made a decision. And I'm not suggesting in any way that decisions are not essential or that effort is not important. But if those things are to earn something from God, we're going at this all backwards. It's not how it actually works. Do you really think that when you were so discouraged you didn't think you could get through another day, that you're the one who sorted it out, figured it out, and gave yourself enough energy to try again? Or could it have been a gift from God? God is very generous. So Jesus came, and he gives us everything so we can stop pretending we have to earn anything. How many are glad all the gifts that God gives are free? They're free to us. He paid the price, but they're free to us. So now we get to live like people who have been loved. How do loved people respond. We can share grace wherever we go. Not because we're trying to be spiritual heroes. That's not it. But the grace that found us won't let us be stingy. It transforms our heart. Fourth point, and that is generosity isn't just about starting strong, it's about following through. Generosity is not just about starting strong, it's about following through. Listen to what he says. Finish what you started. Let the eagerness you showed in the beginning be matched now by your giving. The Corinthian church heard about the church in Jerusalem. And the church in Jerusalem was going through a really difficult time economically. And it wasn't just a single thing, it was a whole bunch of things that were converging on their lives at the same time. They were persecuted, and persecuted people don't have the same kind of opportunities that other people have. So they were struggling because of that. There was also a famine in the area, and so there were people who were naturally, when there's less of something, the price goes up on all those things. How many remember the lessons of COVID? Do you know that people didn't actually use more toilet paper during COVID? They just hoarded more toilet paper during COVID, and that's why we ran out in the grocery store. I'm censoring things I don't want to say about COVID and toilet paper. They heard that their brothers and sisters in Jerusalem were hurting. They were struggling. They didn't have enough. And their initial and immediate reaction is, we need to help them. Their heart was in the right place. And they started after it. But this is not one of those things that you can just fix with one decision or one moment or one gift. There are lots of things in our world that doesn't just, we write a check and it's all done. Like if our church helps to sponsor orphanages, and that problem is not going to go away because we write one check. There are people who they don't have the resources they need, and one check is not going to fix that. There are people who struggle with just unbelievable levels of depression and discouragement, and that's not going to be fixed by one conversation, one counseling session. There's a journey that has to begin, and the church was very excited at the beginning, but then they lost interest. It happens to us too. We can lose interest on a lot of things. Sometimes it's just a lack of information. Sometimes it's just all the other things that are happening in our life. And some of them are good things. Like we get distracted by some of the good things that are happening, but we also get distracted by some of the painful things that are going on. And it's hard to maintain our attention on something that we started, but now other things have come into our lives. And so they've lost their passion. Following Jesus is not just about bold beginnings. It's about ordinary follow-through. Ordinary follow-through. That matters. Now, sometimes generosity does look like a check. But there's another way generosity looks too, and this is going to hit a few of you in the room today, and so just brace yourself. You're not ready for this. Okay, you don't look braced to me. There are times when people offer to help us in a need that we have. And sometimes, because we have pride or we feel shame, we don't want to receive what they've graciously offered. And the generous thing to do in that moment is to receive the gift. The generosity is not just in what we give to someone else. It's also how we posture ourselves to people who want to pour something into our lives. And if you struggle with pride or shame, that's really hard. You're happy to write a check to somebody else. You're fine with that. You want to help all the things that we do around here. You are a faithful contributor. But if you were in a need, even acknowledging it would be difficult, and someone wanting to help us, we would probably say something like this: why don't you give that to someone who needs it more than I do? I honestly believe it was one of my poorest examples of generosity in my life. I was a long way from home in a village church in India where the pastor's home, which is right next to the church, literally did not have a floor in it. It was a dirt floor. If you don't know about some of those services can go 4 and 5 hours long, and you don't get donuts there. I had been instructed by the people who sent me there that if someone offers me fruit, I'm not to eat it, because if the fruit has been washed in water that they use and I eat that fruit, that I could get sick. And that had been told to me as well as to the interpreter who was with me. And so I go into this pastor's home, and I'm sitting in one of the only chairs they have. The rest of the family is standing. And he pulls off the only piece of produce on their shelf. They've got no cupboards. They don't really have a table. They've got a shelf. And he pulls an apple off, and he offers it to me. And I looked at my interpreter and said, "This is where you can jump in now." And all of a sudden, he's got nothing to say. So my thoughts towards him were not very generous. And then I said something of which I am the most ashamed. I declined the offer. And the reason that I gave is because I was already full. Here's a person who has almost nothing and wants to be generous, and I won't let him. And my rationale is I'm full already. I don't need what you have to offer. I felt immediately convicted. And it's hard to think as fast as you need in those moments. And he offered the apple again, and this time I took it. Now all of a sudden my interpreter friend's eyes are getting big, and he's doing this over there. You lost your opportunity. And if he eats it, it'll be okay, because they're used to the water there. I'm not. And so the only thing I asked for was a knife, and I carved the peel off the apple before I ate it, and they thought that was just a crazy thing Americans do. Generosity is not just in the giving, it's also in the receiving. Why does that matter? Because it breaks down the walls between us. If I'm too full and I don't need anything from you, there's a wall there. We're called to be generous. Last point, and I'll have the worship team come up. Generosity is proportional, not performative. It's proportional, not performative. Give in proportion to what you have, not what you don't have. Here's some really good news for you. God is not grading your giving. You don't get bonus points for giving more than you have. You don't. You don't get extra points for giving what you wish you had. You just offer what you have. What time do you have? What attention and presence can you have? What patience can you have? A meal, a small check, a large check, an encouraging text, a ride to work, something that will usually be inconvenient, but you can because you have it. We can't give everything to everyone, but we can give something to someone. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Scarcity is a myth at best and a lie at worst. There's a little voice in my head, maybe it's so loud in my head you've heard it too. There's not enough time, not enough money, not enough energy, not enough love, not enough for me. And when I listen to that voice, and I believe that voice, I hang on to things. I get a tight grip on the stuff that I have. But if I believe in the absurd abundance of God, I tend to loosen my grip and let go. I open my hands. I give and I forgive. And that's when we start to look like the humans that God created us to be. Generosity is it's not moral performance art. It's not networking. It's not a spiritual growth hack. It's how we stay human in a world that's constantly trying to make us less human. We're called to be generous. It's how we defy despair. It's how we say, God is not done with me. God is not done with you. And God is not done with our world. How many are glad? God is not done. He's not done. He's not done. So I'd like to try an experiment this morning, and no, I'm not going to ask you this. A pastor friend of mine did this in the church. I don't know what he was thinking. I do know what he was thinking. That makes it worse. And he said, everyone take out your wallets and your purses. And he said, I want you to hand it to the person next to you. And then I want you to give like you've always wanted to give. We're not going to do that today. But we are going to do something. Prayer is not an obligation. It's an act of generosity. It's generously inviting God into something, and it's generally asking God to do something for someone else. It's a marvelous thing to be able to do. So I want you to think right now, we've got Easter coming up. I want you to think of someone who maybe they've never been part of God's family. Maybe they used to be and they just kind of wandered off, or maybe they were scared off, or maybe they were wounded off, but they're just not connected any longer. I want you to think of a name. A name. Okay? Now we're going to all stand and we're all going to pray a generous prayer right now. I'd like you to pray it out loud and together with me. Where you see the blank, that's where you put in your friend's name. Please do not say blank. That's no one's name. Would you just extend a hand towards heaven? And let's say this together. Lord, all together, I lift up. Let's try that again. And you say the name of the person that you're ready? Together with me. I lift up. May they be lost or searching, unsure or wandering. Draw them to you. Use my words, my time, my life, whatever you need to help them find their way home to you. And all who agreed with that prayer said amen.